Okay, we're restarting. So item 3, declarations of interest. Councillor Salmon.
Yeah, so I called in the Westover Retail Park one, so I'd like to recluse myself from the debate and vote on that one.
Thank you. Any others? No. That's great. If anything does come up while we're going through the agenda, then shout out. Item 4 is confirmation of minutes from a meeting on the 19th of December 2024. Any issues with those? Happy to assign? Yep, agreed. Okay, I shall sign those. Public issues. So after officer presentations, we'll hear any public speakers followed by any ward councillors who wish to speak. So item 6A is Westover Retail Park. So Mr. Davies, thank you.
Chair, do you want to pause to allow?
Well, if you want to speak as part of it.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the proposal is for a new supermarket on the Westover Retail Park site. I think members have been circulated a brochure from the applicant. I haven't seen it, but I'm sure there's some fairly useful pictures and plans in there. Just to advise members, of course, that that's only the points that the applicant is making, and to have regard to the other issues, because there are obviously objectors to the scheme as well. So, Chair, if I can just run through the proposals in detail for you. It's the retail park at the end of Wimborne Road, where it joins Castle Lane West. At the moment, you've got a Pizza Hut there, and a Cotswold, and a couple of other small retail uses. This is an aerial view of the site. It hasn't been there for long. It's only been there for 25 years, and actually I dealt with the original consent on it, so it's sad in some ways that it's being demolished, but it's up for renewal. This is the proposal. As you can see, it's the pink salmon coloured area is where the new retail shop will go. It's in the back corner of the site. The blue area is the back of house storage area, and to the left there you can see the car park that's proposed. The existing access opposite the Grove will be retained and used. There are no other accesses created, no other vehicular accesses created. It's a standard supermarket. I'm sure it's there. As you drive around town, you'll see other little supermarkets. It's mainly brick with a glazed frontage to it, and some advertising panels on the side. The original scheme, as submitted, had more render in it, but we've asked them to provide a bit more brickwork. This is a cross section, and if you can see in the bottom image, you'll see how the height of it relates to the bungalows to the property at the rear. It is higher than the existing building. You can see in the bottom image there, you'll see a dotted line, and that's the existing Cotswold building. So it is slightly higher and bulkier than the existing. This is the view you'll get from Castle Lane. As you can see on the left hand side, you get the new store. On the right hand side, you've got the car park with some landscaping proposed on the side. These are some images. This is the image from Wimborne Road, looking across the car park. That's where in front of you, where the Pizza Hut building is at the moment. This is another view, slightly further up the hill, showing the existing access which will be utilised. This is the aerial view, and you can see large store in the back corner of the site where the Cotswold building is at the moment, and a new car park in front of it. This is the view as you come from the east along Castle Lane West. You can see that this is the end of the building, the back end of the building, and on the left-hand side of it, hidden by the landscaping, is where most of the plant will go. This is the a photograph of the area opposite Muscliffe Lane. This is the existing retaining wall that's there. What they're proposing to do with the site is actually increase the height of the site, so that retaining wall that you can see there hidden behind that hedge will be higher under the new proposal, but they are going to reinstate the landscaping. This is the landscaping plan, or shows the trees that would be felled. There, unfortunately, quite a few trees will have to be felled because they've got to clear fell the whole site because they're changing the levels. So quite a few of the trees on the perimeter of the site that were established many years ago will be felled. The sort of colour coding you've got there's 4 categories of trees. You get very good qualities, average quality, medium quality, and poor quality. The trees that you can see there, the blue ones, are the medium quality trees, and the grey ones are the poor quality trees. The proposal has been assessed by our arboricultural officer. There's no tree preservation order on the site, so although it's regrettable that quite a few trees are coming out, none of them are of sufficient quality to be protected by a tree preservation order. This is a photograph from the car park looking towards one of the properties in Lawford Road, and I'll come back to that later on in my presentation. So, Chair, it's they're proposing a new car park there. A new store there. In terms of the floor space is similar to what's there at the moment. So they're knocking down 3 or 4 retail units and replacing it with a new supermarket. But in terms of floor area, it's actually slightly less than is there at the moment. In terms of the car park, it's a smaller car park than is there at the moment. I think there's about 100 car parking spaces there at the moment, and there's about sort of 70-80 proposed in this application. I'll come on to the traffic issues later. So, Chair, that's the proposal. Now leading into the main planning issues that I need to talk about, and the first issue is in relation to retail impact. This is quite a significant new retail use, and it's not in an existing town centre. Or an existing retail centre. You've got the Castle Point Centre to the left of that image, to the east, and to the south. You've got the Moordown and Winton shopping areas, and further to the right, to the west, you've got the Kinson shopping area. So, Chair, one of the issues we had to consider is the retail impact. Under the NPPF, there is a requirement to carry out a full detailed retail impact assessment if the floor area of the site is more than 2,500 square metres. This is below that threshold, so the applicant hasn't prepared a retail impact assessment. Having said that, they have done their own study and concluded that because of the impact of the development, it's unlikely to have a significant effect on other retail areas. One of the other issues on retail, Chair, is the sequential test, in that the preference is for all new retail units to go in an existing centre. So if you're looking for a site for a new large retail development, you should look first of all at those other retail centres to see whether it could be provided there. They've done this sequential test, and it's been established that there are no other sites within the existing retail centres that this development could go. So in terms of the sequential test, it passes that criteria. Chair, in our emerging local plan has got a policy to reduce that threshold from 2,500 to 400 square metres. So if we're looking in the future at our new local plan, if it becomes adopted, we would be looking for a retail impact assessment to assess the impact. But we're in that stage at the moment where there's no policy requirement to do that. However, Chair, because we had quite a strong objection from another retailer, we felt that we needed to look at that issue a bit more carefully. So we used our retail consultants, Litchfields, to do an assessment on the impact. They also considered the sequential test, and their conclusion was that this development wouldn't have a significant impact on other retail centres. One of the other issues, Chair, is that we've got another application for an Aldi, which hasn't come before you yet, at Wallerstown. They're proposing to move the Aldi in Wallerstown to make a bigger store there. So we did also consider the cumulative impact if both stores were approved. And again, we got Litchfield's advice on this, and Litchfield's advice was that the impact of both schemes wasn't sufficient to have any concern about this application. So, Chair, in terms of retail impact, we consider that the proposal is acceptable on those grounds. Moving on to the next issue, Chair, is in relation to traffic. There's been quite a few objections from local residents about the impact of traffic from this development. Normally, the way that we work out parking spaces for new developments is based on floor area. This scheme has got less floor area than the retail uses that are on the site at the moment. So in terms of parking spaces and impact of parking, there's no traffic issue. However, if you look at the highway engineer's recommendation in the report, you'll see that a food retailer generates more trips. There are more trips at certain times of the day, so there will be more activity. But if you look at the highway officer's recommendation, he said that looking at assessing the transport study, that's probably going to be perhaps a 3% increase on trips. Now, he considers that acceptable. Normally in traffic policy grounds, something of 5% and greater would be something that would cause a traffic impact. So in terms of traffic, our highway engineer is satisfied with that. Traffic engineer is on the call, so if members have got any specific questions about that, I'm sure he can deal with it. In terms of other traffic issues, the applicant is making some financial contributions to improve the general traffic conditions in the area, particularly with regard to pedestrians and public transport. He's making a contribution towards a new crossing, which will cross. If you look at the photograph there, there's they're going to put a new crossing in here because it's obviously a very wide road at a busy junction. So that we're suggesting that they provide a new traffic crossing there, and the applicant's going to make a contribution towards that. Also, the bus stop that's there, they're going to make a contribution towards some real-time traffic information at that bus stop. So generally, there will be an improvement to pedestrians crossing the road and people using the bus at that site. So, Chair, I think that's the main traffic issues. Next issue that I've raised in the report is whether or not we're making the most efficient use of this site. At the moment, you've got 3 or 4 different retailers on the site, and you're now going to have one large supermarket on the site. It is quite a large site, and in our emerging local plan, we've got a policy that has earmarked this site for a mixed-use scheme. What the emerging local plan is saying is that this is an opportunity here to provide not only a commercial use on the site, but some residential uses on the site. I think the local plan is sort of aspirational at this stage, but it's suggesting the opportunity to provide some housing on the site, and we're aware of what our housing issues are generally in the town. So the question is are they using the site efficiently? Of course, the emerging local plan is only at an examination stage, so that policy doesn't bite yet. So the question is this an efficient use of the site? The applicant has been quite clear that their model for developing the site doesn't allow any residential, and if you looked at that scheme in front of you, putting a big block of flats over the car park or over the building may create some problems. That's not necessarily a matter for us to consider. But if members felt that this wasn't an efficient use of the site, then we could perhaps go along that line. But in terms of the policy as it stands at the moment, there's no strict policy requirement for that. It's just a question of judgment as to whether or not we feel that this is the best use for this site. And my view is that you've got a historic retail use on the site. You're replacing it with a modern retail use of the site. I think they are using the land efficiently. There's no wasted land there. But the question is should we have a residential use on the site? The policy doesn't suggest it, but in terms of our recommendation, we're happy to support it on those grounds. The next issue, Chair, is design and impact. Your urban design officer looked at the scheme when it came in originally, and she had some quite strong concerns about the layout and the design. They have improved the design of the building. They've made it brickwork now, more brickwork in it. They're putting some public art on it. So in terms of the impact on the street scene, I think it'll have a reasonably positive impact. One of the main concerns is perhaps this view that you get from Castle Lane, which is unfortunate because it is the back of the building. Having said that, there will be quite a lot of landscaping proposed, and it also follows the layout of the site as it is at the moment. So, Chair, I think we are happy with the overall design. One other issue, Chair, in terms of the design is the impact on local residents. And if you look at this photograph here, you'll see that bungalow in the back. At the moment, they've got an open aspect onto the site, and there'll be a large building that'll cover that view. It is pretty close to them. It's about 10-12 meters away from their back, but in terms of loss of light, we consider it acceptable. So although they'll lose their outlook, they won't lose light to a sufficient degree that we could recommend refusal. So, Chair, on that point, we think on balance that the scheme is acceptable. I talked earlier about the number of trees on the site that'll be felled, and you can see those trees in front of you that were planted when the scheme was developed. Unfortunately, they are all coming out because they've got to clear level the site. In terms of the proposed landscaping, you'll see that they are proposing quite a lot of tree replanting around the outside of the site. That's not the right plan. Yes, you can look at that image there. You can see they are replacing most of the trees that are coming out. So, Chair, in terms of sort of overall landscaping, we consider the scheme acceptable. Another urban design matter, which we think is a plus for the site, is that they're going to be providing a new access from Castle Lane. If you look at the sort of middle left of that image, you'll see a ramp that goes up, and that will provide access to this site across the pedestrian crossing that's there to the housing area to the north. So we feel that that's quite a good benefit for the design of the site. And moving on to the next issue, Chair, as you'll see from the report, the highway engineer is asking for a dedication of land to provide a better cycle route, the east-west cycle route that runs along Castle Lane there. They have designed the scheme without having a specific dedicated cycle route. The highway engineer is thinks that we should take the opportunity to ask for them to dedicate, a 2-metre strip of land for that better cycle route. The applicant is unable to provide it because the site is quite tight. If you look at that photograph, that image there, you'll see that you've got a row of car parking spaces at that point, and the applicant has said that it's not possible for them to provide that dedication of land. Interestingly, our original draft district-wide local plan had a policy that with a highway control line on it that required the developer to dedicate some land to us. But they've already done that. So this site, when it was developed under the old local plan, actually gave the council a 2-metre strip of land, and they've then been able to provide an extra filter lane onto Castle Lane. So they're saying that they've already this site has already made a dedication and given some land, and it's not possible for them to provide that extra land for the cycle route. Although it would be beneficial and helpful to have that, we as in terms of our recommendation don't feel that we can support that. Normally, a requirement for a dedication like this would have to be related to the scale of the development. If, for example, there was no development on the site at the moment and they were increasing the number of parking spaces and the number of trips significantly, you could argue that a lot more people would travel to the site by bicycle, and therefore it's reasonable to mitigate that by asking for improvements to the cycle route locally. We feel because of the floor space is similar, that's something that we can't ask for. As I say, they've already designed the cycle route, and at the moment you're going to have a cycle route that's got a shared pedestrian cycle element to it. The benefit of having the wider cycle route would mean you'd have a separate cycle lane and a separate pedestrian zone. But that will be beneficial to the cyclists. But one of the things that obviously concerns us is that area of the road is quite wide at the moment. Creating more tarmac and a much wider highway at that point, wouldn't be necessarily good in highway ground. So, although I can understand why the highway engineer requires it, we feel that under this planning permission, it's something that we can't recommend, and so the applicant has said that they can't provide it. So if we did want it, we'd have to refuse the application, and we don't feel there are sufficient grounds to refuse it for that reason. So, Chair, I think that's most of the points covered. I've referred earlier to the status of the emerging local plan. If we had that new local plan in place, we'd have to ask for a we'd have to ask for a retail impact assessment, and we'd also have the policy requiring that site to be used for mixed use. But at this moment in time, there are unresolved objections to certain retail policies and other policies in the local plan, and the status, although it's gaining some weight, we don't feel that it's got sufficient weight that we can use those policies to refuse this application. So, Chair, with the list of conditions that we're proposing, we're satisfied that we can support the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. So now we move over to public speakers. So, objectors, please.
Thank you. We have 2 written statements from local residents who are objecting, who are unable to attend today. The first is from Richard Goslin. I am generally supportive of the application, but with 2 interlinked concerns, namely road safety and parking. Has an estimate been made regarding any increase in traffic into and out of the site compared with current levels? The surroundings are often congested, with traffic queuing at the traffic lights. Traffic coming from Castle Lane appears suddenly around the corner. Traffic leaving the Grove tends to be overlooked by vehicles leaving the site, which tend to only check out Wimborne Road. The site plan shows 78 parking spaces, with 61 for general use and 17 for specified uses. How do these numbers match up to estimated demand? Are any spaces allocated to staff parking? If not, where will staff members park and how many staff will be on site at any given time? Parking in surrounding roads is very limited, with very few free spaces. The left side of the Grove, viewed from Wimborne Road, has a parking restriction. If this is abused, parked vehicles block the sight line for traffic entering the Grove and push traffic into the path of vehicles descending the road. Currently, the yellow line marking the restriction is very faded, and in 38 years I have never seen a warden checking the road. In summary, my concerns relate to extra traffic congestion and the impact of parking, particularly illegally on the restricted section of the Grove. The second statement is from Sol Treywern. Traffic. The current entrance and exit to Castle Lane is entirely unsuitable for a store expecting frequent daily visitors. Traffic on Wimborne Road is already unsafe due to existing hazards, including traffic light queues, 2 bus stops, the busy Westover retail park entrance, and the junction with the Grove. As a very local resident, I regularly witness dangerous 4-way standoffs at the retail park exit, compounded by frequent parked buses. This area is precarious, and adding further strain is reckless. The proposed £66,000 pedestrian crossing is a wholly inadequate and dismissive gesture. It does nothing to address the deep-rooted traffic and safety challenges that this development will intensify. Resolving these issues would require a complete overhaul of the local road network, costing millions. Introducing a high-traffic supermarket to this site will drastically worsen congestion, increasing accident risks and significant delays along Wimborne Road and Castle Lane. Cars entering Wimborne Road will face immediate queues as cars wait to access Lidl's small, insufficient car park, leading to gridlock. This congestion will heighten the risk of collisions and impede emergency services, potentially endangering lives. The existing infrastructure is neither designed nor equipped to handle the scale of disruption that this development will create. The consequences for local residents and road users will be severe and entirely avoidable. Local parking. As congestion grows, Lidl customers will likely avoid the car park and instead park on local roads, blocking driveways and causing safety hazards from careless parking and driving. Jobs. Lidl operates on minimal staffing, and its arrival will lead to closures of existing stores, resulting in more job losses than gains. The net employment impact must be carefully scrutinised, especially and include potential for job losses when, not if, Lidl Winton closes. Need. Within a few miles, we have Lidl Winton, Co-op Moordown, and larger stores like Sainsbury's, Asda, Aldi, and Tesco at Castle Point and Kinston. The existing businesses at the retail park, Cotswold, Pets at Home, Pizza Hut, and Prama Charity Shop are valuable community assets that would be lost. Construction impact. Residents' right to quiet enjoyment will be severely affected by construction. We are already experiencing disruption from the horse and jockey site. Contractor vehicles have damaged road surfaces and created safety hazards, which will worsen with this larger project. Environmental impact. In light of the global climate crisis, this development contradicts sustainability goals. The destruction of functional buildings is wasteful, and the carbon footprint of constructing a new store is considerable. This environmental cost is unjustifiable for a redundant supermarket. Conclusion. The significant traffic, parking, employment, community and environmental concerns render this site unsuitable for a supermarket. This planning application should be denied in its current form.
Thank you. And moving to the applicant or supporters.
So speaking in support, we have James Mitchell, who is here. Would you like to come forward?
Morning, members of the committee. Yes, my name is James Mitchell. I'm the Regional Head of Property for Lidl. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you in support of our proposals this morning. Since the validation of the application in June 2023, the scheme has evolved immeasurably, with improvements made in many areas to respond to officer and consultee comments. I'd like to thank officers for the collaborative approach they've employed throughout that process. I'm delighted to say that as a consequence of this, the application before you this morning is recommended for approval. I'd like to use the time available to me to briefly summarise the benefits of the scheme. Crucially, officers have determined that the proposals accord with relevant policies. And with regard to retail policy, specifically the sequential test and impact considerations, officers have engaged a professional third-party consultant, Litchfields, who've confirmed the scheme's compliant in all regards. Delivery of the scheme will see the upgrade of a tired and somewhat outdated site and its replacement with a state-of-the-art facility. The new store will provide better choice and competition in the local area, assisting with the provision of sustainable shopping facilities accessible by alternative modes of transport, thus allowing residents to shop locally. The scheme boasts excellent sustainability credentials with the inclusion of a smart building management system, high energy efficiency fixtures and fittings, including LED lighting, as well as a significant solar panel array. Combination of these measures achieves a 233% reduction in carbon generation and a 264% reduction in energy consumption when compared against modern building regulations requirements. The scheme also boasts excellent BNG credentials with the provision of 35 new trees, accepted that some trees are necessarily lost, but they are virtually all replaced, 466 hedging plants, and over 3,000 new shrubs. This delivers a net gain of 46, nearly 47% in respect of habitat units, and a 467% net gain for hedgerow units, well in excess of normally acceptable and required standards. The bespoke design, public art installations, and hugely upgraded landscaping of the site should ensure a much improved and more attractive streetscape. Off-site highway improvements are provided in the form of a new crossing point on Wimborne Road, as well as a contribution for the improvement of bus stops also on Wimborne Road, primarily the provision of real-time traffic information screens. And of course, the scheme offers a significant investment in the local community and is representative of our continued commitment to the BCP area. Perhaps most striking is the unprecedented public interest in the application. Lidl directly consulted all of those residents in the intended catchment area of the store, and incredibly we received in excess of 5,000 responses to that consultation process. 4,326 residents supported the proposals, that's 86% in favour, with just 12% objecting and 2% undecided. That pattern of support is replicated on the Council's own public file. The volume of positive responses is clearly indicative of a local desire to see the scheme delivered such that local residents may shop quality produce at affordable prices locally. I hope I've made clear the many benefits of the scheme. Our application benefits from huge public support and has secured a recommendation to approve from our case officer. With that in mind, I hope members will feel comfortable to support their officer's recommendation and grant permission for the scheme. Again, many thanks for the opportunity to speak to you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally, it's Councillor Salmon, Ward Councillor.
Hi guys, thanks for the opportunity to speak on this. I'll try not to be too long. My grandfather was a dairyman. I've worked in supermarkets before. It's one of the first jobs I got coming out of school. I've got a decent understanding of economics, and I can tell you now, approving this application will make our town worse. So it will mean the closure of the Lidl store in Winton. You know, that's inevitable. A resident contacted me this morning to point that out, and they quite rightly identify that will set Winton, you know, further on course to become a ghost suburb of what's already basically a ghost town with the state of Bournemouth's High Street. Supermarkets don't create jobs. They take jobs away from other existing local employers, you know, smaller, more locally owned businesses, and they replace them with more precarious jobs, or worse paying conditions, more alienating work, and a more alienating experience for the shopper as well. Aside from that, the only way you can really make their treatment of employees look in any way positive is to compare it to the way they treat not only their customers but their suppliers. If you look at, like a lot of you here, I come from a family, from a community that used to have a deep connection to the land, to our farming industry, to the production of all of those things, and that was destroyed by what modern supermarkets have done to this country and continue to do to this country. What they do in terms of the generation of food waste and so forth is unforgivable. And quite simply put, normally at this stage now, I would continue on my soapbox and make a really impassioned plea for you guys to ignore all bureaucracy, vote with your conscience, vote with your common sense, and refuse this application. Luckily, because I'm not a particularly eloquent speaker, I don't have to do that. All you guys have to do is properly read your papers, because if you look in the papers we've got, really sets out why this application should be refused. The Highway Officer makes it clear this application should be refused, and I can't believe we're almost an hour into this meeting and it's not come up already. This should be refused under CS14, CS18 and CS41. It's set out in the Highway Officer's report. He says this application should be refused. And that's on top of the reasons we've been given by MRPP. And I'd like to remind everybody in this room, all of the councillors who are about to vote on this, as the residents already have, that this is one of the most congested areas in one of the most congested towns in the country, in a country where actually the number one risk to most children and to many adults is road traffic accidents. This is going to create more and more congestion on areas. I mean, I cycle along there. It's a death trap coming down that road sometimes. And to abandon the very idea of having a cycle lane there for what? To get a slightly bigger Lidl, closing down a slightly smaller one. For once, quite often, as a council, we're simply bullied into doing the wrong things by the bureaucracy, by government, and by rich, powerful landowners. For once, we have an opportunity within our policy framework, as has been set out, to refuse an application that would do our communities absolutely no good. And I hope you'll vote to refuse this application. I hope I've made that clear. Thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you, Councillor Salmon. I think in view of a couple of... You can go back to them. I think in view of some of your statements, initially I think it is appropriate that Mr Mitchell just comes back and just on that aspect about Winton Store, if you can categorically say it's remaining.
Yes, it's quite bizarre that the councillor is able to present that as a statement.
Would you just yes or no? Will it be staying?
The Winton Store is our most successful store in the BCP area. It's shopped by over 20,000 customers every week, driven by the largely student footfall, mainly people shopping on foot with low basket spend but high frequency. This is a different type of store to serve a different part of the community in a different way. The Winton Store is in no way under threat, and the presentation that it might be is probably slightly disingenuous, in all honesty.
Thank you for confirming that.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr Davies, was there anything you wanted to come back on from comments?
No, I don't think so, Chair. No, there's no questions raised. So.
Okay, so as Mr Davies says, we've got the highway engineer online, so I think it's appropriate if Alexis, if you do come in now on the two aspects. So on the junction opposite the Grove, the congestion there, but also about the cycle lane walkway provision. Thank you.
So thank you, Chair. I'm Alexis Edwards, the Transport Development Manager. Right, to deal with the cycle lane first, as you're probably aware, the council is delivering the Transforming Cities Fund along this corridor. Our colleagues in engineering have a scheme to provide a shared use path along the frontage of Castle Lane West at this point. They have recommended that if the land could be made available, that the segregated path could be provided instead, but this would require the store to be moved slightly to accommodate that request, which the applicant has basically said they're unwilling to do so. In terms of the congestion, the actual development here would have a increase in number of traffic movements associated with it, around sort of 3%. So this is not severe in terms of the NPPF, but it is a slightly significant change to the current use on the site. It would be drawing a lot more pedestrian movements into the area as well. We would expect that quite a lot of the movement would be concentrated on the existing access. However, the existing access should be able to accommodate people coming in and out without causing any further concerns. I have checked the accident record for this location. There are no reported accidents in the last 5 years at the site entrance opposite the Grove. However, there have been a number of slights and one serious within the actual signalised junction of Wimborne Road and Castle Lane West. Without looking at the exact details for each accident, I can't say what has caused those. However, it may be related to conflicting movements. Now, do you have any further questions for myself here regarding the traffic movements?
Members, Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you. The car park. I'm sure it's quite sufficient for most of the year, but high volumes at Christmas, Easter, bank holidays, and of course during the summer months, it's going to cause an overflow situation. Can the area around it, will the infrastructure handle it?
So the car park they're proposing is 78 spaces, which is in accordance with our parking standards SPD, based on the floor area, as the case officer, Mr. Davies, has said. The level of traffic which may go there at busier periods could, as suggested, overflow into surrounding streets. There are, as some of the objectors have pointed out, restrictions on some of these roads. Obviously, it is very difficult to calculate how much extra demand in a peak period there is for parking on a site such as this. The store currently has around 100 spaces, so there is a reduction, but it's a totally different sort of demand for the use on the site. It could be the case that some traffic is spilling over to side streets, where we could, in future, subject to request, introduce additional parking controls and then enforce those controls. However, it is quite a hypothetical situation here as to what that future impact may be.
Thank you. Councillor Rice.
Hello. Yeah, can you tell me how this fits with the council policy of 50% of all journeys being by active travel or public transport?
That is a very good question. I'm just trying to look through the total splits in terms of the relationship between car journeys and pedestrian movements. It certainly would be an increase in the number of pedestrian movements to the site compared with the current use. So we would be expecting something like 175% uplift in number of pedestrian movements in a weekday, and 330 odd percent on a Saturday, due to the catchment being quite localized. The applicant made reference to their store in Winton, where there is a high student number. A lot of the people who shop there are coming from the surrounding streets, and we would expect the similar to happen for this store here, where you have a large residential area surrounding it. A lot of people will be walking to the store rather than driving because of the proximity. There would be some uplift in sort of public transport, bus movements, perhaps 2 to 5%, and yeah, and sort of those sort of numbers in terms of the non-car movements to the store. So they are quite a large increase, but I can't tell you exactly how that relates to a total percentage mode share.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rice.
Yeah, just to come back on that, I suppose that's really good to hear those projections in terms of walking and public transport, although it's not a very nice area to walk, is it? Particularly very noisy and unpleasant. Probably can't have a conversation on those pavements due to the volume of traffic. But in terms of the, have we got any numbers on the percentage of people that drive to that site, and will there be a drop? Because it's at the moment we're being told that there's going to be a 3% increase in private car transportation to that site.
There would be more car journeys to the site than the current existing uses on the site. To provide a context, it's assumed to be 780 extra net journeys to that site by car.
So if you're able to work out a percentage then of how much increase that is, it doesn't mean very much to me, 780 journeys, but a percentage would be helpful. But that doesn't sound as if it's in keeping with our general policy then.
The percentage is approximately just under 3%.
Okay, just thanks for that, Mr. Edwards. There might be some other traffic shortly, but any other questions just generally about the application? I was thinking, Mr. Davies, there was you mentioned the Wallisdown store. Would you normally consider both applications together, or is that not appropriate in this stage? Thank you.
Chair, yes, we did raise this issue with Litchfields, who are our retail consultants, and they were quite clear in their advice that we could deal with this application separately from the Wallisdown application.
Thank you. And again, just on the bungalow at the back, you mentioned about the light, the positioning wouldn't deter the light, but could you just confirm? So we saw a wall, a hedge, I think at the moment seemed to be about 6. Yeah, that one. If you go back a bit, I think the position now. No, back one more. Yeah, that one. So what would the height of the building? Would you think another metre onto that hedge? Just for.
Yes, sure. If I can show you the elevation, that would be helpful.
Just a moment, Mike.
Chair, yes, if you look at that bottom image, you can see the bungalow, which is that bungalow there. That's the property in question, and you can see the height of their bungalow, and you can see the height of the proposed development beyond it. Although that image that you've got there has actually changed. We did negotiate an improvement, and if I can then show you. Go to this. Chair, if you look at that image there that I'm circulating, you can see that that's the wall that they're going to be looking at there, and you can see it is lower than the main building, and it does step away from the boundary. I haven't got a scale there, but I would imagine that's probably about 4 meters high, 4.5 meters high.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rice, did you have a?
Yes, I have a few more clarification questions on the transport aspect. You may find me focusing on transport, but obviously these sort of we know what the buildings are like for Little's, so that doesn't concern me quite so much. But it does create a lot of transport questions. So one is the exit point, exit and entry point to the car park. I can't see a continuous pavement marked on the plans. It looks like a fairly splayed entry, encouraging fast and dangerous car driver movements. So I'd like clarification on whether a continuous pavement can be installed or whether it is planned. The cycle parking, whether there's any weather protection to the cycle parking and provision for cargo bike cycle parking. If we can get an answer to those two first. Thank you.
Chair, perhaps I can just briefly comment before the highway engineer comes in with any more detail. You can see that image there, and they are utilising the existing access point, and you can see that there's the footpath will continue across. There's no sort of new road with curbing in. So although there is obviously a dropped curb, so that's what's being proposed there. And in terms of the cycle parking, Just to let members know that it does meet our SPD in terms of the way that the cycling has been provided.
And Mr. Edwards, I think that would it be priority to cyclists and pedestrians?
It is, well, as Mr. Davies has said, it's retaining the existing access. In theory, we could retrospectively install an Aberdeenshire entrance curb to achieve the continuous footway that Councillor Rice has referred to. The applicant has made no intentional desire to do that. They just wish to make use of what is there at the moment. If you know the site well, obviously we have the painted shared use path going across there, and that would continue. It may be refreshed at some point in the future by our maintenance team, but obviously there are turning vehicles moving across that, and so it is for the turning cars to give way to pedestrians and cyclists who are walking or cycling along that stretch.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rice?
Yeah, since we've got the applicant here, from the images in Google from May 23, suggests that the cycle lane red surfacing has finished. And so it completely looks as if, and the splayed curve of the curbs looks as if it gives priority to car drivers. I imagine most pedestrians would stop anyway. So if the applicants could consider ensuring that it reinforces priority for pedestrians and cyclists along that aspect, that would be good. Can you, with regards to the transforming cities stuff on Castle Lane, I'm not up to date, and I don't imagine that most of the members on the committee are up to date with the TCF work on Castle Lane, because it's always changing. So can you just explain what are the current plan proposals for that area, and the significance of not ensuring that we have this extra 3 meters along the side? Is there a possibility that we remove the turning left lane instead, that was mentioned, that was given to the Transport Authority, I don't know, 25 years ago, or if that's not a consideration, what is the plan if the land is not taken at this point?
Right. In terms of the plan for the TCF work in this particular section along Castle Lane West, our engineering colleagues have drawn up a scheme to create a shared use path along this part of Castle Lane West as it heads towards the Red Hill roundabout. It would make use of the existing pavement in this location and require cyclists and pedestrians to obviously share that space. It is not ideal in terms of a solution. There is a number of pieces of telecoms equipment and other street furniture in this location, so it would be not, I'm led to say substandard, but not to an ideal design. The removal of the left turn lane or the middle ahead lane has not been considered, primarily in my opinion, due to the cost of removing that and the consequential impact that would have on the capacity of the Wimborne Road Castle Lane West junction to accommodate that very strong east-west movement. So instead, they've concentrated on looking at a shared use path in this location. They did have a contingency scheme, which is to acquire the land, which we've discussed already, which would allow for a segregated cycle track and a separated pedestrian path along there. However, that's not possible without the applicant's agreement. So instead, we are pursuing this shared use path instead.
Thank you. Councillor Rice?
And just to clarify then, if we refuse the application today, then that would enable conversation to occur again about the land allocation there and whether they were interested, I assume. And can you just confirm that this is a very strategic junction here? There is high propensity for cycling, and that best practice policy following the LTN 120 would be for a segregated cycle lane and not a shared use. If you could just confirm that.
I can confirm those points. Yes, it is a strategic location. It is the main east-west movement. Location in this area. It would be the better solution in terms of a more LTN 120 compliant design to have a segregated path at this point. It would remove conflict between pedestrians and cyclists and allow sufficient space for the users of that facility. I can't speak to the applicant's willingness to agree to dedicate land in the event that this application is refused. From previous discussions with them, they have made it clear that the site is unable to accommodate this request because of the design of the building and then the consequential car parking and all the rest of the infrastructure needed to have that store there. That's all I can answer on that point.
Thank you.
Thank you. And any other questions before we... Councillor Martin?
I was just thinking about the mixed use that you mentioned. It would be ideal to have mixed use. The little store is going to be a brand new building, and when Aldi's built their new store in Poole and the one in Boscombe, they actually put flats above it, and I don't see why this can't be done here. It's a flat roof. And there's loads and loads of space you could, and there's some very nice little flats, because I've looked round one of the flats above Aldi in Boscombe, and they're quite sweet. They've got like a little courtyard area in the middle, and they've all got a little bit of garden space, and they're just very, very pleasantly laid out. And I can't understand why Lidl's can't do the same here on this site. It's not a good use of land to not, when we're so desperate for housing, to not do that. You know, to just have a flat roof doing nothing seems to me quite wasteful, really. It's just a waste of land that we really need for housing.
Mr. Davis, did you want to comment?
Yes, Chair. Yes, as I said earlier, it is feasible, but we've approached the applicant and they are unable to do it under the model of this store. So the question is do we refuse it on those grounds? We feel that our policies aren't strong enough to be able to do that at the present time.
Thank you. Councillor Gill?
Just a very quick question on the highways aspect. The extra filter lane that was provided from the site, was that done before the implementation of the current core strategy in 2012? Do we know that or not?
Yes, Chair. It was provided as part of the previous approval for the when the site was developed in 2000.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there's no further questions, we'll go straight in to debate. I think for me the main thing is the balance between the local plan, the emerging local plan. So there's a few things which would potentially change, as we said, the housing, the need for more of a retail assessment because of the size. But I think, as the officer said, we can't put weight to that because it is still emerging and it's not before us. So we've got the policies in front of us now. I'm still torn. I think there is demand for this type of retail, but against it is the traffic concerns. But I think they're there already. I don't think this is adding to them. But I do note the traffic engineers, highway engineers, concerns about that there is a proposal for improved cycle lanes and that's not coming forward. But I think if the position was now with the current retailers, I don't think they've got scope to widen it. So I don't think there'll be any improvement. So yeah, it's in balance at the moment. Thank you. Any other speakers? Chapman Law.
It's a good location in terms of geographically between the various centres. It does fill a gap that, you know, between sort of Castle Lane, Kinson, and Moordown and Winton and Parley. It's that kind of like nice in the middle bit. And there is obviously demand for these stores. and the fact that it is in the middle of all this will theoretically could reduce car trips to those other locations. So rather than driving 3 or 5 miles, you're only driving, or hopefully walking or cycling instead, a mile or half a mile. I get that, but at the same time, like the fact that they're not willing to offer up this bit of extra road to improve the walking and cycling along a very, I ride and drive along that bit of road all the time, and it's a very car centric bit of road, and it is incredibly busy, and it's sort of classic sort of 80s road infrastructure that is just horrible, awful design. We'll just put more lanes in. It's fine. So yeah, I'm really torn on this. I'm not sure where I want to. If they'd been offering up that extra bit of land, then I think I'd be looking at more favourably on it. But I'm just stuck in the middle at the moment. So I'm looking forward to someone swinging me either way.
Okay, I've got a few points. First of all, the bulk and mass, particularly when you're looking from Lawford Road, and behind those houses, at the moment they've got so like an open aspect onto the onto the site, and there's trees and screening there. All those trees are to be removed. I know they're medium quality, but they're reasonably substantial. If you poked around the edge of the site, and then there's going to be the building isn't just a little bit higher, but it's also a lot broader from their perspective. It goes right across the back of those houses. Whereas you can see from that there they have an open aspect, and it's pretty. I mean, it's up above their window line, so there's a huge amount of bulk and mass, and obviously you've got all the trees that are being removed for that in the area. The other thing is that obviously we all appreciate the extra filter lane, but that was built before 2012 when the core strategy was implemented. Now the whole road was widened in 1928 when they removed the racecourse. So do we have to take that into consideration? That was also before the core strategy. Surely the core strategy is about what is the plans for the future. It's not a retrospective about what what has already happened in the past. So I don't understand why we shouldn't be insisting on the cycle route in that perspective. And if it's not viable with the cycle route, then maybe it's not viable as a site at all. So yeah, I've got a couple more, but I'll leave it on those two for the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Gillett. Any other, Councillor Rice?
Yeah, I suppose I'm disappointed that the planning team have decided to override very comprehensive comments from the transport team, and it just we don't often get applications whereby the transport team are actively opposing something. Usually there is a lot of compromise. For example, the bus stops improvement, a pedestrian crossing here and there, which are helpful, but they don't make this significant difference to actually enabling a family to be able to cycle safely somewhere. And the requirement for that is a segregated cycle path along a busy road like this. And the amount of work that has gone into the transport team to decide which areas are strategically important or not is years of work. And so I'm surprised, I suppose. Like initially when I saw the application for a little store, it wasn't very controversial for me. I have no objection to the building or the site for that use particularly. But if it is destroying a key infrastructure aspect, then it is just quite shocking for me to see this, and for it to be put forward as recommended. So I would like to. Well, the other major aspect for me is that yes, I knew friends that lived in an Audi flat above an Audi's. and it was beautiful, like with these little courtyards. I hadn't appreciated the sort of the design of these flats above there. And so the idea of missing out on these beautiful homes on this site, when it specifically says, if I can draw everybody's attention to page 13 on the document, there's sort of two numbers, but paragraph 39, site-specific policies, which we haven't really covered, but Wimborne Road Retail Park, M1, the site is for to make efficient use of land utilising upper floors, provide in the region of 40 homes, enhance public walking and cycling environment to and from the site, be predominantly 2 and 3 stories in height, and ensure buildings are set back to enable a segregated cycle route to be constructed on Castle Lane West. So it doesn't really fit any of those requirements either. So I would support this building or this supermarket in this site if there was housing. There was just much better use of the land. So housing, multiple stories, and sustainable transport prioritised.
Okay, thank you for that comment. I think it's obviously worth mentioning that is all under the emerging local plan, and because it is emerging,
Is that
way. So yes, from 36 onwards.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it is coming. So yes, it would be an ideal, but we are where we are now. So, Mr. Gould.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come back on a couple of points that Councillor Rice just made there. When you have the planning officers in my team, which is the development management team, we have quite a broad, wide remit. We obviously consult with internal and external consultees, such as Alexis's team in highways. And a lot of the people we consult, they have quite a focused specialism. So they might be concerned with highways, they might be concerned with heritage, they might be concerned with environmental health, so on and so on. The role of the planning officer in the DM team is to pull all that together and to weigh that in what we call the planning balance. And that's all that's happened here. So in this instance, we acknowledge the fact that there is an objection from our highways colleagues and on the point that's been sort of discussed at this meeting. But when Mr. Davies puts that into the planning balance, on this occasion, he feels that I have to imagine a set of scales and you're putting weights on either side. And we feel that, on balance, the benefits that flow from the scheme outweigh what would be perceived as harm or negative. So that's all that we're doing in our team. We have that sort of broader remit to have to weigh in all of those sometimes conflicting considerations. And I've just wanted to also stress the point, Chair, that you've just made, that reference to that policy M1 is a policy in our emerging local plan. The examination in public for that local plan is actually taking place right as we speak down the corridor in the chamber. So, we don't know the outcome of the examination. The adoption of a local plan has key milestones along its journey towards adoption, and the examination in public is one of those key milestones. But as I say, it's taking place as we speak, so we don't know the outcome of that. So our advice to members is that it's an emerging policy. I certainly wouldn't say it has no weight. It has some weight, but at the moment we would describe that as limited weight. And so I would caution in trying to attach too much weight to an emerging policy where it's at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
That was useful. Thank you, Mr. Gould. Councillor Rice.
Can I just come back then and say apologies for using the term disappointed in the decision by the planning officer. More that, in my view, the balance is different from what has been put forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so I think from what I've heard, I'm willing to have a recommendation as set out for approval. I think I've known other transport schemes where there's many factors. We go out to consultation and we listen to either businesses and the public, and we go with the majority if it makes sense. And I think in this case, what we've seen, as the Mr. Davies showed, there is a added access point so that pedestrians can access the site. So probably cutting the corner off, I'm sure it will lead to, which would mean that the pathway would be free for cyclists. And I think it is currently wide enough. The preferred would be a wider and dedicated, but I think at the moment it is wide. So as I said, I would propose that set out. So I'm looking for a seconder. Councillor Slade, do you want to say?
No, I hear what everyone said. Thank you to the officers. I'll propose it. I'll second it.
Okay. Are there any other debate? Mr. Gould.
Yeah, Chair. So the move was to go with the officer's recommendation. If that is what the members are about to vote on, could I just pick up a few points of housekeeping around the addendum that was obviously published yesterday, and ask that the recommendation would be to take note of there's 2 additional conditions that are suggested in the addendum, and to also alter the recommendation so that it gives delegated power to the head of planning operations to finalise any wording that we need to look at on those conditions. And I don't know if Mr. Firth wants to add anything extra.
Chair, so yes, I think if that's the move, that as members obviously do need to consider that the fact that I think the addendum picks up on 2 conditions. One is a new condition that was discussed what's come forward in communication, I believe, with the applicants, and which Mr. Davies might be able to comment on specifically. And the other one is changes to one of the other conditions. So yes, Chair, if you're, as a mover, and the seconder, if they're happy to take on board, that would be sensible, and I endorse the recommendation from the recommendation that's been made, which is that if you want to do that, it'd be sensible just to give power to the head of planning operations to finalise the wording as necessary of those conditions.
Thank you for that. Yes, I'm happy to proceed. Councillor Slade?
Yeah, happy with that.
Okay. So are there any other debate, or we shall go to the vote? So the vote is to approve. So if you are going for that, show now, please.
1, 2, 3.
For refusal, show now.
Not 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And abstentions.
1.
So that application is not to
Need another move now.
to go ahead. So do I have a proposer, Councillor Rice?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose that we refuse the application on the Highway Authority's recommendations of CS 14, CS 18 and CS 41. But there can be discussion around those. That's what's written in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Did you want to make a comment on that, Mr. Firth?
Yeah. So Chair, so a couple of points. So obviously we'll need a seconder on that one in due course, but if we want to clarify that, I mean, it is of course right that if members are going against the officer recommendation, they will need to identify their reasons. I think as far as the specific one that's been picked up, it might be useful just to have a quick look at those policies, or Mr. Gould just to run through those policies, and members can confirm their views on that. I'm also conscious there's been other discussions that have taken place as well of concerns that have been expressed, one relating to design, one relating to design, and one relating to effective use of land, for want of a better phrase. Purely on that last one, I would mention, obviously, we've talked a lot about the emerging local plan. Another material consideration would, of course, be the NPPF, which has some information on the effective use of land as well. And members may want to have regard to aspects of that in reaching their deliberations. But I think we can go into those in a bit more detail when we've got a seconder, and obviously perhaps the move can confirm if she wants to just put forward on the highways, or if she wants to take on board any of the issues relating to effective use of land and or design as well in her motion.
To take on board any other issues as well.
Okay. So do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Chapman-Lord, did you want to make a statement on policies?
Can we, the dedication of the land part, can we include that in there as well?
I understand that was actually the first reason for refusal that was put forward.
Yeah, fair enough.
Well, I'm assuming that the policies that are stated by the transport team include that aspect, but if it needs to be put separately, then that's also fine.
Thank you. So Mr. Gould will run through some policies, and if you are in agreement with those, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And so listening to members, there appear to be two main objections to the scheme. One being the the cycling and walking and how the scheme doesn't contribute to supporting the development of that wider network. Mr. Edwards would probably be better placed to go through those detailed policies. But just looking at one of them, I've got it on my screen in front of me, which is CS18, which is one of the ones that has been listed. The opening gambit to that policy talks about all new developments will provide adequate cycle storage in accordance with the council's adopted standards. Not so relevant, but the next sentence says new development will be well integrated with and will not compromise any existing or proposed cycling and walking network. So I would suggest that that's probably pertinent and relevant. But I'll ask Mr. Edwards if he wants to come in and just maybe explain some of the other policies that for the reasons why they've put them forward, and then I'll come back in, Chair, and I'll pick up the NPPF, which Mr. Firth just referenced.
That'd be useful. So, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we included the other policies from the core strategy, particularly related to the car parking, the walking and cycling policies, because of the layout here and the fact that the proposal would fail to support the high quality walking and cycling network that we as a council aspire to have in place. Obviously, Mr. Gould has referred to all the relevant policies that would be appropriate as set out in the Highway Officer's most recent response to the consultation request.
And CS41, so that's quality design. What was the particular focus there?
That one was related to the, I believe that was related to the failure to enhance the walking and cycling network because of the design of the site, where the building is positioned prevents you from delivering that facility.
Okay. So before we go to Mr. Gould, Councillor Gillett. Just a mic.
I didn't speak to the efficient use of the site, but we're losing 4 retailers and putting it into 1. So that's also a point in terms of efficiency, and also in terms of the bulk and mass. If it were to have been approved, there's no screening at all from the houses on Lawford Road, who now have an open vista and would have a wall in its place.
Thank you. So, Mr. Gould.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just picking up now on the inefficient use of the site. Obviously, we've made reference in the debate to the emerging policy M1, and I obviously commented a few moments ago to say that I would urge caution and attach limited weight to that at the moment, given where the local plan is on its journey towards adoption. But we've also got the National Planning Policy Framework, the NPPF. I just wanted to run through a couple of policies, paragraphs in there. So the first one is paragraph 11, which talks about the presumption in favour of sustainable development. Plans and decisions should apply a presumption in favour of sustainable development. And then it goes on to say, for decision taking, this means approving development proposals that accord with an up-to-date development plan without delay, or where there are no relevant development plan policies or the policies which are most important for identification or update, granting permission unless. And this is where we're starting to, you've got your sort of tilted balance coming in. The application of policies in this framework that protect areas or assets of particular importance provide a strong reason for refusing. So that would be, for example, greenbelt, conservation areas, which is obviously not applicable in this instance. But then it goes on to say, or any adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits when assessed against the policies in this framework taken as a whole, having particular regard to key policies for directing development to sustainable locations, making efficient use of land, securing well-designed places and providing affordable homes, individual accommodation. So there's reference there to making efficient use of land. I could then refer members to chapter 11 of the NPPF. And this runs from paragraph 124 through to 130, and this is a whole section making efficient use of land. There's quite a lot in there which I won't go through now, but if members wanted to run with a reason for refusal relating to the inefficient use of land, then I would suggest that we would use paragraph 11 and chapter. Sorry.
Apologise.
paragraph 11, which I just read through a few minutes ago, and chapter 11. And with the delegated authority back to the head of planning, that would just give us a chance to just go over that a bit slower when we've got a bit more time and to identify the specific paragraphs. But chapter 11 would cover it as a broad.
Thank you, Mr. Gould. So, Councillor Rice, are you?
Yeah, I'm content with that.
Just add a couple of points. I'm conscious that reference was made to policy CS41 earlier in the context of highways and the highway issue and design. I'm conscious there's been another reference to a different design point because of the massing, as I understand it. Now, policy CS41 is a general design policy as well. Is that the policy that perhaps the had in mind when they're talking about concerns in relation to that? Perhaps if I read it out, or at least perhaps the key part of it. The council will seek to ensure that all development and spaces are well designed and of a high quality. Development should, through its scale, density, layout, siting, character and appearance, be designed to respect the site and its surroundings, provide a high standard of amenity to meet the day-to-day requirements of future occupiers, and contribute positively to the appearance and safety of the public realm. And it then goes on to talk about development will, by virtue of its design, which by virtue of its design would be detrimental to the built environment, amenity or character of any part of the borough, will not be permitted. Is that the...
Yes, it is, as long as A doesn't point out that I've written CS14 rather than 41 on my screen, but yes.
So, Councillor Rice, if you want to go through the policies and reference to the MPPF.
Yeah, the transport officers quoted both CS14 and 41.
Yeah.
Which is maybe where, and CS18.
So the reason for refusal are those three policies plus...
Paragraph 11 plus chapter 11 of MPPF.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other thing.
Councillor Gillett.
Sorry. One other thing, obviously, there is an indirect impact on the green belt, because if you don't, we've got a housing target, and if we don't build houses there, then they'll probably end up on the green belt.
Okay, so Mr. Gould, if you want to, so we've had the three policies from transport, and obviously expanded 41 covering bulk and mass as well. Also, the references to the MPPF, as you've stated.
Do you want me to just run through those?
Yeah, I think that would be.
I've got a point of clarification in my mind as well. So in respect of the walking and cycling, the highways issue, we've got CS14, CS18, CS41, and there could be wording along the lines of again, we'd want failure to provide the land necessary to support the delivery of a high quality walking and cycling network would fail to support the uptake of active travel, and as such fails to fully mitigate the impact of the proposed development. The proposal is considered poor design and is contrary to policies CS14, 18 and 41 of the Bournemouth Local Plan Core Strategy. Development is also considered to be contrary to the aims of the NPPF, which requires opportunities to promote walking, cycling and public transport uses identified. Blah, blah. Then obviously we've got the reference to the NPPF for inefficient use of land. That was paragraph 11 and chapter 11. And the point of clarification from me, Chair, is there's been some debate about the bulk, the massing and the impact on the nearby properties in Lawford Road. I'm unclear at the moment whether that is also a reason for refusal.
Councillor Rice?
Well, I would like more understanding as to whether that conflicts with one of our other statements in terms of if we're wanting more efficient use of the land, then there's going to be a suggestion of flats above. How does that impact on that? It does, for me, it doesn't.
It's a really good point, Councillor Rice, because if you imagine that a revised application came back with the Lidl in the same part of the site, and 1 or 2 stories or however many stories on top for residential, then there's the potential to raise an issue about the impact on those neighbours in Lawford Road. I suppose, though, you could take the view that as part of a fresh planning application, that the supermarket building might move to a different part of the site. It's not wedded to being in that part of the site. It could be a complete redesign with the building in another part of the site to offset the additional height.
I suppose from my personal point of view, I don't feel it's necessary to include that because we have more substantial policies that for me are much stronger. So I'm happy not to include that aspect.
And Councillor Chapman-Law, are you happy for what Councillor Rice?
That's fine.
Okay. So if there's no, Mr. Firth.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I was getting mutterings from Mr. Davies, but just to pick up a couple of other points, if I might. First of all, regarding the issue of further issues relating to highways, the recommendation as it stands at present would have been to grant subject to a 106, with various highway contributions, etc., being made in order to offset what would otherwise be a reason for refusal. If the recommendation is there therefore to refuse, it's a technical point, but it should, I would suggest perhaps, or you might want to consider taking on board a recommendation as an additional reason that absent a 106 agreement to cover those points, that would be a further problem as well. So it's a technical point, but if that could be added as a reason, that would probably fall away because almost certainly an appeal, if it went to appeal, it would solve through a 106, but it needs to be identified as a reason. I think that was that. And Chair, just to endorse the point that if the recommendation coming forward, I'd agree with what Mr. Gould said, which is that it would be sensible to include power being delegated to the head of planning operations, perhaps in consultation with yourself, Chair, to agree the final wording of the actual reasons. But obviously we've heard what members' principles are that have been covered.
Okay, Councillor Rice, were you happy with that approach?
Yeah, that's fine. Just one tiny comment was that you said about high quality cycle lane. My thinking is more along lines of best practice or in line with national policy, as opposed to this should just be standard cycle infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Chapman, you're happy?
Yeah, I'm happy.
Okay, so if there's no further debate, we will go to the vote. So if you want to refuse the application, vote now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
If you're against refusal, show now.
1, 2, 3.
And abstentions. No abstentions, so that application is refused. Thank you. So we'll just take a moment to have a 5-minute break. Okay. So if we Okay, welcome back. So now we're on item 6B, 134 Carberry Avenue. So Mr. Henry to present. Thank you. Yes, we can see that, but we can't hear you.
He's on mute.
Darren, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, carry on.
This application seeks consent to erect a block of flats with associated parking and turning, and an internal bike and bin store with communal gardens. The application is presented to committee as there are over 20 objections. The development site is located on the corner of Carberry Avenue and Cranley Road, with the site fairly level and has a triangular corner plot, as can be seen here. The property is well concealed from public views by dense and tall hedge, acting as front boundary treatments along both road frontages. The proposed site is located within an established residential locality within Bournemouth, with good amenities and transport links. It lies just over half a mile from Southbourne High Street and approximately 120 metres from a small row of local shops just down here where the pointing where the red arrow is. The neighbouring properties consist of a varied mix of architectural styles and finishes, including traditional two-storey brick and tile properties, as well as chalet-style rendered and slate properties. Across from the site is Bournemouth Society of the New Church. Whilst this is not nationally a local listed building, it is identified as being of local importance. It's accepted that the proposal will have a bigger mass than the existing house. However, the site is a large plot that can accommodate the block of flats without the site appearing overcramped, overdeveloped or cramped, and would provide adequate external amenity space for the occupants. The proposed site plan here shows large garden area, storage bins, suitable cycle space, provision of car parking spaces here. The site plan here shows the proposed site plan more in context of the area. It should be noted that the site is located in parking zone B, and therefore there are no car parking spaces required, although 3 are provided. The vehicle access to the front is to be retained here, whilst the one to the rear, which was over here, is going to be closed off and replaced with hedging. A new pedestrian access point here as well. Also, recently, it is now a requirement that minor applications received since April 24 must provide an uplift in biodiversity of at least 10%. The proposed landscaping would create additional habitat units comprising of modified grassland and introduced shrub, equating to a biodiversity net gain of almost 39%. With regards to the non-designated church, it is considered that the visual impact of the setting has been minimised in comparison from a pre-application application, and has reduced the mass, scale and height of the proposed building, with the heritage officer stating that the footprint of the proposed building has been set back far from the junction of Carberry Avenue and Cranley Road. As such, the heritage officer considers that the visual impact on the setting of the new church has been minimised given the reduced mass and scale and height of the building. Therefore, from the heritage officer's point of view, the conflict between a heritage asset conservation and the proposal has been minimised. This is the new church here, which is directly on the other side of the road from where the application site is here. Furthermore, it should be noted that there is a block of flats and opposite the site on Cranley Road, which this was approved in 2006, and there's a three-storey block of 7 flats. The length of the proposal is approximately 18 metres, whilst the width is approximately 12 metres, thereby having a comparable scale and bulk to the application, which in this case, the proposed building would be almost 22 metres and with a width of 9.8 metres. This is a block of flats here that's been previously approved. This is the proposal. This is the proposed block of flats showing the front elevation, the side elevation, which would face the corner, the junction of Carberry and Cranley Road. The rear elevation, which faces onto Cranley Road. And this would be the side elevation that faces the next door neighbour, 132 Carberry Avenue. As you can see here, that the height of the building reduces the closer it gets to number 132 Carberry Road. These show the street views from Carberry Avenue here. This is the corner point here. Again, that's the building slopes down, progressing to a similar size height of the neighbour. This shows the street scene from the point of view of Cranley Road with the neighbour here. With regards to the impacts on neighbouring property, the previous house, existing house, was built up alongside the boundary here. The proposal now has shifted away about 3.1 metres from the boundary, increasing the separation distance away from the neighbour. And it's considered that the proposed separation between the two buildings ensures that there will be no overshadowing or overlooking of the neighbouring property. With regard to the living conditions of the for the occupants, the proposals provide a good size bedrooms. This is the ground floor here, with bedroom 1 having sufficient space to provide for 2 double bedrooms. And bedroom 2 has a sufficient space for 1 double bedroom and 1 single bedroom. With the first floor, there's sufficient space for both flats to provide for 2 double-sized bedrooms, which would be suitable for 4 people, while the roof, the second floor, is suitable for a 1 double bedroom and 1 single bedroom, suitable for 3 people. The roof plan here shows that there would be adequate light for the second floor flat. So in considering the planning balance, it's considered that the proposal will provide 5 new flats in a highly sustainable location. As the council is aware, this will contribute to the shortfall in housing supply, which stands at 2.1 years. It is considered that there is no harm to the character of the area or neighbouring amenity, or to the non-designated heritage asset. Also, sufficient car parking spaces is provided, as well as cycle and waste storage, and the proposal also meets the requirements for, to meet the biodiversity net gain. Therefore, it is recommended that the committee grants delegated power to grant permission subject to completion of 106 and conditions as suggested in the officer report. I would just like to point out one further thing which relates to objections that were submitted in relation to the Carberry Estate Covenant. Whilst this is not necessarily a planning matter, neighbours pointed out that the covenant explicitly states that no buildings other than a dwelling house with along with a private garage shall be erected on any lot, and stipulations to this state that the measurement of the dwelling should be no less than 1,400 square feet, and the property should be no less than 40 feet from the frontage of Carberry Avenue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. So if we now go to objectors, please.
Thank you. We have 2 local residents who are speaking in objection. First is Mr. Richard Matthew, followed by Simon Willis. You've got 5 minutes between you.
Thank you for hearing me. I'm Richard Matthew, and I live diagonally across the road from the development. I just want to make one comment on what Mr. Henry has said, in that the block of flats across the road from this is not on Carberry Avenue, it's on Cranley Road. It's the only block of flats in the area. I've had a look at that site. It's much, much bigger than this one. I also ought to point out that I don't think this is a particularly big plot. It's no bigger than the other plots in Carberry Avenue, and it's also a very odd shape. Certainly, it would be much closer to the road than other properties on this in this area are. We're talking about, I calculated, 5 flats will produce 20 rooms. 20 rooms on what is a modest site like this is going to represent considerable overdensity. It's almost like a small hotel. It is too much. So that would be my first prime objection. The second one is that, okay, we have 3 parking spaces and we may require none. I don't know whether any of you have ever driven down Carberry Avenue in the evening, at night when it's dark, but the street lighting is very shadowy because of the LED lights, and it's shadowy because it's blocked off by the trees and the shrubs which are on either side of the road. It's very difficult to see parked cars, and we had 2 instances of this last year, both of which were really serious. One struck a parked car opposite my house, which is not far from this one, and the car somersaulted over and landed on its roof in the middle of the road. Had the car been coming the other way, it would have been terribly serious. But what's significant is in both cases the parked cars were hit so hard that they were knocked across the shrubbed verge and actually pushed onto the pavement or the edge of the pavement. Now, we have dog walkers out in the evening. I'm one of them, and had anybody been walking their dogs along there at that time of night, then without doubt they would have been very seriously injured, or at least be lucky to escape. And 3 parking spaces for 20 rooms, 5 flats, I know may be within planning guidance, but the practical effect of it could be horrific. And we local residents know that we have to get our cars off the road at night. We don't park cars on the road because we know of the risk, and you can't really see them, especially against oncoming headlights. The only other point I want to make is I've lived and worked in Southbourne virtually all of my life. And I know Carberry Avenue really well. I went to Starfield Junior School a long time ago. Carberry Avenue is special. It's a beautiful tree-lined avenue. On each side, you've got houses set back from the road. They're 3, 4 and 5 bedroom. There is development going on in the road, but it's not to build flats. There are no flats in this area at all. It's purely to enhance the buildings that are already there. So it would be my argument that this building, this development, would be totally out of character with what we have in Carberry Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Just to confirm, you've got around 1.5 minutes left.
Okay, thank you very much. I think all in all, you had about 35 objections to this development. And Richard's already mentioned a number of points, and also the possibility of the violation of the covenant, which was also raised by Mr. Harvey. A number of other issues, also the environmental impact of knocking down this perfectly good house and rebuilding it. You've got a nursery school only between 50 and 100 metres away, and the potential effect of this environmental issue. And there were a number of other issues raised as well. But particularly, there's about the house itself. The existing house from the outside is very attractive. It's a very nice, good-looking house. Might need some development on the inside, but the structure of the house is very nice and in keeping with the rest of the houses in Carberry Avenue. And to knock it down would be an awful pity, and surely against any environmental advice. And in particular, as Richard has already mentioned, we have the safety angle. Carberry Avenue is meant to be a 30-mile-an-hour road. To my knowledge, it's never actually enforced, and some traffic go up that road at considerable pace. And the accidents last year, I'm afraid, were not alone. There have been other accidents in previous years. And all of these extra cars, which are not going to fit into this car park, are inevitably going to be parked on Carberry Avenue. It's like a chicane sometimes at the best of times, and this will only make it worse. So from a safety point of view, environmental point of view, and aesthetic point of view, I would recommend that this is turned down.
Okay,
thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. So now we move to the applicant and supporter.
So we have Matt Stevens speaking on behalf of the applicant.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the Planning Committee. Thank you for giving me the opportunity of speaking to you today in favour of this application. We are the architects that design the scheme, and we've worked closely with your planning department to deliver the application in front of you today that your officers have recommended for approval. This application seeks full consent to demolish the existing traditional 2-storey 3-bedroom house and erect a block of 5 flats. Our client originally submitted a pre-application request to your planning department for a larger scheme of flats on the site in 2023, as we advised that pre-app was the recommended process to go through in line with national and local planning policy guidance. The written feedback was received in January 2024 and was very constructive, as your planning officers agreed that the principle of flatter development was acceptable in this location, and it gave various feedback relating to the scale, design and mass of the proposals, all which have been taken into consideration in the planning application before you. The site is in an area of mixed character, and this is highlighted within the officer's report, which states: planning officers consider the proposal would not appear out of character in the immediate or wider vicinity, and the principle of the proposal is therefore considered suitable in this location and accords with policy CS21. Your planning officer also writes: whilst the proposal will have a bigger mass than the existing house, the site is a large plot that can adequately accommodate the block of flats without the site appearing overdeveloped or cramped, and will provide adequate external amenity space for occupants and space for cycle storage, bin storage and 3 car parking spaces. This is an example of the hard work and design that's been put into this application by my team, the planning officer and consultees over a long period of time to ensure that this site is developed with a suitable high quality development. My clients are a well-known and established local family developer who deliver a high quality product and have a real understanding of the local area. There have been thorough negotiations and liaison between the design team and your planning department, including your urban design officer, who states the proposed building would be of a traditional appearance. The building would be in keeping with the character and appearance of the area, which consists of a variety of architectural styles and size homes. It is noted in the report that there is a built scheme of flats in Cranley Road, which is of greater size and mass compared to our proposal. This demonstrates that this type of development is suitable for this location and forms part of the existing character of the area. The planning officer's report therefore concludes that planning officers consider the proposal will provide a quality development which respects the pattern and scale of the wider context and is in accordance with local planning policies and the NPPF. During the design process, careful consideration has been given to ensure that there are no overlooking issues and that the development respects the amenity of adjacent properties. All units within the scheme are designed to national minimum house standards, and our client takes pride in creating places that people will enjoy living in. As we all know, there is a need for new housing on a national scale, but especially in BCP. Within the officer's report, it states, of all the flats in the BCP area, only 10% are within the outer suburbs, the lower amount in the BCP area. As such, a combination of significant need for 2-bedroom units and a lack of flatter development in the area will improve the balance of housing types in the area. Overall, the proposal provides sufficient internal and external space for occupants to enjoy a good standard of living that will contribute to achieving a good balance of housing types, including smaller housing types as those proposed in this application that will go some way to providing a range of low-cost, good quality dwellings where there is a need for such dwellings in accordance with your policies CS6, CS21 and CS41. During this application process, there were lots of negotiations with your highways officers to ensure that the scheme meets the requirements within your parking SPD. The highways officer had concerns, but these have been addressed, and planning officers are therefore satisfied that this proposal is compliant with your policies. Planning officers are satisfied that the statutory biodiversity net gain condition is capable of being achieved and therefore being discharged in accordance with the biodiversity gain hierarchy, and careful consideration has been given to ecology and drainage as part of the proposals. So to conclude, your planning officer's report states the proposed development represents an acceptable form of infill development and will increase the supply of flatted developments in the area of low provision, thereby providing an affordable level of 2-bedroom dwellings in an area dominated by larger family housing. Furthermore, the proposal will have no impact on residential amenity, and there is adequate external community amenity space for occupants, as well as car parking provision with safe vehicular and pedestrian access and egress. I therefore ask you to support the hard work of your planning officers today and grant this high quality, well-designed development within BCP to provide new housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. And now if we have Ward Councillor Navona.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. I am Councillor Bernadette Nanovo, and I am here this morning in my capacity as Ward Councillor for East Southbourne and Tuckton. And I want to reiterate that local residents strongly object to this development, 40 of whom made their feelings known on the planning portal. The destruction of a good quality family home is contentious from an environment point of view, as construction and demolition waste contributes millions of tonnes to landfill every year. This is not a sustainable development as referred to in the Bournemouth Local Plan CS1. The plan to build 5 flats here with the complete removal of hedges and trees is overdevelopment of this site and will lead to a cramped site. The scale of the development does not complement the site. I refer to CS41. Residents are rightly concerned about the lack of parking for this development. The traffic moves fast on Carberry Avenue, and as it's tree lined, the visibility when driving out onto the road will be hampered further by even more cars parking along this road and blocking the view of oncoming traffic. As we have heard already, there have been a number of accidents on this road. This development is on the corner of two busy roads, Carbery and Cranley, with double yellow lines outside. So residents who do not have a parking space will have to park further along Carbery Avenue or on Cranley Road and cause more congestion and inconvenience for residents already living there. Most of the complaints my co-councillor and I get are from residents who cannot drive off their drive safely when cars are parked really close to the entrance. It is hard to convey the trouble this stirs up and the anger residents feel when others from nearby streets park outside their homes. And we also have Tuckton Parade, which doesn't have car parking. So that's an added pressure on parking spaces. I note that there is a visitor's bicycle parking space, but no visitor's car parking. And as much as I would love everyone to be on their bikes, I don't think we are there yet, if we ever will be. I know that BCP are under pressure to build more homes and have quotas, but I question that this is the way to do it. Thank you very much for your time today, and I hope that after scrutinising this application carefully, you will reject it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So, Mr. Henry, was there anything you wanted to come back on relating to the particular maybe character of the area and traffic? Thank you.
Hello, Chair. Going with the parking, highways have no objection to the proposal. They're satisfied that there's no highway safety issues. The provision for car parking is beyond what's required in the SPD, which is zero requirement. There is free spaces provided. The character of the area is yes, it's tree lined on both sides. However, that they're I'm not too sure how the trees would sort of obstruct cars going by as they're on the pavement. The proposal is in a similar character to the area, which is as stated in the report, quite mixed and varied.
Okay,
that's it, Chair.
No, appreciate that. So we're open up to councillor questions. Councillor Gillette.
Yeah, so very thorough report. But can the officer confirm that a breach of a covenant is not a planning issue? If there was a breach, that would be a separate legal issue that would need to be taken up separately.
Mr. Henry?
Yes, I confirm that the covenant has no bearing in relation to planning matters. It would be a legal situation, maybe with the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pedoman.
Thank you. I thought I heard the ward councillor refer to the complete removal of hedges and trees, but the design, the plan we've got up on the screen at the moment appears to show green boundary treatments, presumably hedges. Can Mr. Henry confirm what is the position with trees and particularly the hedges?
The hedges will remain, and I think there's some extra hedging going over on the left hand side there at the top where previous access was. The landscaping it will be improved from what's existing, to the point where it would be in excess of the minimum 10% biodiversity net gain, to a point where it would be a 30, nearly 39% net gain, I think, although my slide says 33, but I think it is approximately 39%.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rice.
Just to clarify that, on the plans it says new hedge proposed. On that drawing that you've got there, if you zoom in, it says new hedge proposed behind existing wall. I was just looking that up whilst you were speaking as well. I have a feeling that on closer sort of looking at that hedge, it looks like a Leylandii sort of type of hedge, which isn't possibly very biodiverse. I'm not sure. So I wondered whether they're replanting that hedge in order to get the BNG increase, but there isn't I haven't been able to see the detail about that, so I don't know if we've got anybody that can confirm that or not. But it does look as if that hedge is going to be replanted from what that drawing says.
Yeah, there will be some replanting of hedges and in slight infilling where there's some slight gaps currently in the hedgerows. As I say, the landscaping is quite comprehensive, as it shows a good increase in the biodiversity levels at present.
Okay, Councillor Gillett.
One more question. So in respect of the highways, there's just want to confirm there's no plans to remove the double yellow lines outside the site onto Carberry Avenue. So I guess the closest parking would be in Cranberry Road, or where that little site is off the side in Cranberry Road where there's parking for the shops. Is that right?
There's no proposal to remove the double yellow lines. No, but there's more than adequate car parking provided on site.
Okay, Councillor Chapman-Law.
Yeah, obviously, with it being a bit further out from the town centre, what are the bus services going to be like? You know, 'cause obviously they're going to be very reliant on active travel and public transport, with only having 3 parking spaces.
The site is on a good transport corridor where there's good bus services.
Okay, any other questions? No. So in that case, we'll go to debate. Anyone want to start? Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. I know the road well. It is a busy road and it is a fast flowing road. It does slow down when you get to that corner of that junction. There is flooding all the time. With the slightest bit of rain, it does flood at that corner and it does get deep. So that will slow the traffic down. I guess the cars are pulling out from those car parks. If there has been a downpour, they will be pulling into water, and we are talking it can get to near on a foot of water in that area, and it takes a long time to drain. I don't know what can be done about that, but that is an issue. Going back to the flats, there are also flats on that road. Okay, not to the bottom of the road, but at the top of the hill, Carberry Avenue, there are 2 fairly recent, 18 months, 2 years old, 2 big houses that were demolished and into flats, and you're probably looking at $500,000 for the flats plus. So 2 comments: it does get very wet in that corner right outside this building, but there are flats at the top of the road. Couple of comments, having knowing the area very well.
Appreciate that. No, sorry, it's okay. Any other debate?
Didn't Aid want to? I will if not.
Councillor Perrin.
Thank you. It always goes against the grain with me to demolish what appears to be a perfectly good building that's in use. But against that, there are other things to weigh. And one of the reasons for rejecting the last application was efficient use of the land, or failure to use the land adequately. It seems a huge, comparatively big plot, I was amazed to find that the size of the existing house and that it's only 3 bedrooms. It looks as if it ought to be quite a bit bigger than that to me. So, excuse me, to put these 5 flats on that site, if the house isn't there, seems to me a much better use of a plot of that size. Parking could be an issue, but there's a lay-by at the junction of those 2 roads of about 9 spaces. Well, certainly when I went to view the site on Sunday afternoon, there were only a couple of cars parked there. I had no difficulty parking in that. So I assume residents will be able to. I don't know what it's like overnight. The traffic issues and the cars hitting parked cars, well, I don't think that can be held against this application. If people are driving badly, they are driving badly, full stop, and they shouldn't be driving badly. They should be sticking to speed limits or less if the traffic or the conditions don't permit getting up to 30. Maybe there's an issue, a highways issue on lighting, on parking, on visibility, but that's nothing to do with this application in my mind. That is an important issue, but it's not to do with this. And action needs taking on those issues as necessary. So on the whole, I'm happy that this should go ahead as proposed.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Chapman-Law, did you indicate?
I didn't, but I will take it. Yeah, just to echo on the driving standards. You know, that's you need to take that up with your ward councillors and get your ward councillors to get the police involved and actually start getting some enforcement down there if you're having constant issues with driving standards on your road. That's what I do. I love the design. I love it. It fits in so nicely with the other buildings in the general vicinity. I love the integrated bike parking. It's nice and secure. You know, bike theft is a common problem. It's got the EV chargers for the people that do have the cars. Good sized rooms, and perfect for young families. So you know, you've got the school nearby, shops nearby. It's very, very good. I'm quite pleased with it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rice.
Yeah, in general, I support this application for the reasons just stated by Councillor Chapman-Law. But I would also just like to emphasise the difficult balance between gaining sort of 5 homes here as opposed to knocking one perfectly functional, pretty looking house down, and the carbon footprint of that. And we don't calculate the carbon footprint of these type of changes, so it's very difficult to make an informed decision. And it's just highlighting. It often comes up, and it highlights a lack of information that we are able to have as a council at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I actually did visit in the evening. I note Deputy Chair's comments that you weren't sure what it would be like in the evening. I did visit in the evening, and there was loads of parking not in Cranberry. I parked in I parked in Cranley, because I just had a feeling when I was driving down Cranberry Avenue, Carberry Avenue, it didn't feel safe to park there. It is a bit dark, so I went around the corner, but there was loads and loads of parking, and I think I would echo what everybody else has said, that it's an attractive new building. That the old house is pretty, but it's looking a bit has-been. I've got to say I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but it does look a bit has-been. It's got like the those leaded highlights windows, and it just looks a bit old-fashioned. And I think this new building will really fit in the area really well. The shops nearby for people living in there. It's just perfect little 5 family homes, and it will go a long way. I mean, we're getting a net gain of 4 homes, which is what we need at the moment. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for that. And Councillor Salmon.
So I'm pleased by Councillor Martin's comments, to be honest, because my main concern would be the parking. I mean, in my mind, those are 2-bed flats. That's probably going to be 2 working people in each one of those flats. That's 2 cars. If you've got a job, you've got to have a car. With the way we lay out this town, it shouldn't be like that, but that's the way it is. I mean, I'll go back on the bus today, but I couldn't get to work on a bus. It's too unreliable. And I think probably the ward councillors are stuck in the same position I often am, of going, oh, can we just do what's the sensible thing here? I don't see any policy reason to refuse this. And I tell you what, even if I did, on balance, it's a net increase in houses. But I think for most of us, the worst casework we deal with is all the housing stuff. People who are stuck in bed and breakfasts and whatnot after being chucked out on a no-fault eviction. We're desperate for more flats in the area. If this means more bedrooms, I think we've got to approve it.
So is that a proposal?
Oh yeah, and yeah, I'm happy to propose that we approve it.
Okay, Councillor Salmon's proposed. Councillor Gillett? Any other comments by anyone? No, so we got the Mr. Scoot.
Yeah, Chair, I mean, if members are just about to go to the vote, just similar to the last application in terms of the wording of the recommendation, if we could have power delegated to the Head of Planning Operations to finalise the wording of conditions. I don't think there's any suggested wording changes. And also, as Councillor just raised, completion of the Section 106 agreement, because obviously it's a scheme that results in a net gain in residential development. Therefore, CS33 of the core strategy is triggered in terms of requiring mitigation against impacts on protected heathland.
Okay, thank you for that. You're okay with that, Councillor Salmon, Councillor Gillett? So it's if you are happy to approve as set out, show now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's unanimous.
That's unanimous, so it is approved. So thank you for that. And that concludes the meeting for today. So thank you.